Hey folks, I'm Mike Taylor from Page 99, Pygmy Lush, and Terminal Bliss, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Nic Kuczynski of Frail Body. Frail Body just put out an excellent new record called Artificial Bouquet. They're a band I've enjoyed for quite a while now, but this latest record, I've got to tell you, it's really something special. And we talked to Nic about that record. We talk about the history of Frail Body. We talk about Frail Body's recent appearance at Roadburn Fest. There's all kinds of great discussion, and that's coming up shortly. But before we get to that, I need to ask you for a favor. We are on the push to 300 Apple Podcast reviews. So if you have an iPhone and you have not rated the show, please do it. Give us 5 stars. We've got 234 Apple Podcast reviews. We've got to close the gap to 300. Also, follow me on Instagram at New Scene Pod, and we have t-shirts available for sale at our store at Deathwish Inc. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. Shout out to Her Heads on Fire on the release of their new LP, Strange Desires. I was just listening to it earlier today, and I'm really digging it. There's vinyl available, there's new merch available. Go pick something up and support Her Heads on Fire. There's an Iodine showcase gig August 1st in Medford, Massachusetts that features No Man, Love Letter, Corrode, and Teardrops. Rebuilder has 3 gigs out west coming up with Streetlight, Manifesto. Piebald and Hot Rod Circuit have 2 gigs coming up in California in October. Audio Karate has tour dates with Mest in September. No Man has summer tour dates in July and August. And Dead Bars have tour dates out west in August. Go check out the Iodine Instagram at Iodine Recordings. They have full listings of all the dates for all these shows. Get out there and go support live music. And say hello to our sponsor for the month of July, Equal Vision Records. One of my favorite record labels. I've been listening to their bands for decades. They've got an unbeatable legacy roster. They've got an unbeatable current roster. And here are some updates from the label. Nova Charisma just released a new single called Stolen From Each Other. That's from their upcoming LP, Metropolitan. And their record release show is August 9th at the Roxy in Los Angeles. Armor for Sleep just released a brand new single called In Another Dream. That's available on every streaming service right now. Yellowcard just released a cover of Jimmy Eat World's Hear You Me. And all proceeds from streaming are benefiting a friend of the band in need, so go check it out. Gideon have tour dates in July and August. Check the EVR page for a full list of dates. Don't forget to check out the new single from Common Sage. It's called Eden, and that's from their upcoming EP called Nostos Algos, which comes out this week. Also, this day forward have 3 gigs coming up. It's their first shows since 2003, and quite possibly the last ones they'll ever play. Tickets are still available for these 2 shows, so get them while they last. August 23rd at Underground Arts in Philadelphia, and August 25th at Bowery Ballroom in New York City. And don't forget, Hot Water Music just put out an excellent new LP. It's called Vows, and you want to listen to it. There's merch available, there's records available. Go get it. For more updates, head to equalvision.com or check out their Instagram at equalvision. Okay, so check back in with me. In segment 3, we'll do a wrap-up of the conversation with Nic. My band just played its first show this past week. I'll recap that for you. We'll cover everything. But right now, we are going to speak to Nic Kuczynski of Frail Body. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Nic Kuczynski. Nic, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, Nic, it's great to have you here. Frail Body. I think Frail Body is having the busiest year of any band ever. I was just looking at all of your tour dates, tons in Europe, tons in the US. I just saw you recently. You've got a lot more coming up. We just put out one of the best records of the year.
Oh, thank you.
Artificial Bouquet. Yeah. There's a lot going on. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I have to ask you, how are you doing today?
Man, Keith, I'm doing great. I got to spend a good amount of time outside today. I'm just stoked on this conversation. I'm feeling great. How are you?
I'm good. Wow, I don't know what happened today. The time just flew by. And look where I live. It's an apartment in Brooklyn, right? And the ceiling. All right, between me and the guy upstairs, the ceiling's a little thin, and he was walking back and forth for a half hour straight.
Oh, man.
I don't know what was going on up there, but just half an hour back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I almost went crazy. But that's done. We're here now. I feel good, and I'm ready to talk to you.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Yes. What were you doing outside?
I was just going on a little bike ride. I had a little bit of free time today before this, so I wanted to kind of make the most of that.
Do you still live in Rockford?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Did you grow up there too?
Just outside of it, directly north of it is a little suburb called Loves Park, and I lived there most of my life, and then moved to Rockford as an adult. But it's really basically one town. So like I would come to Rockford to go to shows and do all that stuff.
What's the vibe there? What's it like?
It's a working class town. We used to be the screw manufacturing capital of the country, so we're called the Screw City. So it was a pretty big industrial town, and then in sometime in the late 70s, all those jobs kind of moved away. So yeah, I don't know. It can be kind of depressing at times, just because it's hard to find work out here. Like I live here, but I work in Chicago, for example. There's a couple. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a really, really strong working class town. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at it on a map earlier today. It's like northwest of Chicago. So what's your commute into Chicago? How long?
On a good day, it's like an hour 17, hour 20. On a bad day, it can be north of 2.
Yeah, all right. So I used to go into Chicago a lot for work, right? Because I used to travel constantly for work.
Okay.
What's that highway that goes, it's like next to the airport that runs into Chicago?
That's I-90. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane in the morning. Like by 6:30 in the morning, I think it's like already packed.
Yeah, that's like the worst time the only place I've really experienced that's been worse in the States is DC, honestly.
Yeah, and Atlanta too.
Atlanta
too.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah, well, you see, we're just going to name every big city out there,
yeah,
and they all have bad traffic.
Yeah. You know who's got great traffic though is Portland. How about that?
I hope they do.
Better than here. But I mean, you're in New York, so I don't even know why I'm complaining about that.
Yeah, well, I don't have traffic, Nick. I'm living the life here. I live in Brooklyn. I'm 10 minutes outside of Manhattan. It's like 2 train stops away.
Okay.
I work from home 99% of the time. So you know what? It's fine.
Yeah,
it's good.
You got to figure it out. Do you even own a car, or do you just do public transit?
Last time I owned a car, get this, 2007.
That is wild, man.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Here's a good question for you. Do people constantly misspell your first name?
All the time. N-I-C-K. Yeah, it's N-I-C.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I started, there's no K in Nicholas, so I always felt weird like putting the K on. So sometime around like 5th or 6th grade, I was like, fuck the K. I'm going to just go NIC.
So you just decided on NIC. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I had a bet with a friend that I sat on the bus with, and she was like, I bet her, I was like, if I start spelling it NIC, like I bet my mom will start spelling it NIC within like a month or 2. It was like my birthday was right around the corner, and we had like a $5 bet or something, and she's like, there's no way she'll start spelling it that way, and then I won the bet. So it's been NIC ever since.
So your mom actually started spelling it NIC.
Yeah.
I like that. When I was a kid, I hated my name, Keith. I didn't like it. People made fun of it. It was a whole thing. And I really liked the movie The Gate, like the 80s horror movie. And the kid in that movie was named Glenn. So I just started calling myself Glenn.
Okay.
But it didn't work out. I got in trouble. The teacher, I wrote Glenn and then my last name on a test. And the teacher was like, well, your name's not Glenn, your name's Keith. And then I just gave up.
You gave it a shot though, and that's all you can do. So
I had to try.
yeah.
What do you do for your job right now?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Kickstand Productions in Chicago. So we book at a few different music venues here in town. So Subterranean and Beat Kitchen are the two main venues, and then we'll do shows at other venues occasionally as well. But I'm a production manager, so basically I just make sure the shows run on time. I make sure the bands get taken care of. I pay them out at the end of the night. I'm kind of just like the point of contact for bands at shows.
Nice.
Yeah.
You ever get any weird requests like, hey, man, we need you to go pick up this package, but don't ask any questions?
I've had to do some runs like that. Thankfully, most of the time I'm just in the building. Occasionally bands will leave something somewhere and I'll run whatever item they left to like FedEx or something to get that back to them. But it's a pretty fun job.
Yeah, plus it's in music, so that's got to be good, right?
It's awesome. Yeah, I've gotten to meet some really, really awesome people through doing the job. Like over last summer, Built to Spill did an undersell. So Subterranean, one of the venues, is a 400 cap room, and Built to Spill played there as an undersell for Wicker Park Fest. And so I got to hang out with all the Built to Spill people, and like I love that band, so that was quite a treat. But I get to, brush shoulders with people in all different genres. And yeah, I love my job, man.
I like that. Yeah, because, with this podcast, right, there's a lot of tedious work, editing, social media, posts, writing, all that stuff. But because it's attached to the music, which is attached to podcast, I don't mind it as much. Do you feel the same about stuff you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Like even with my commute, like I don't mind doing it because I get to work with something I love, and even if it's like a band that I might not necessarily enjoy, I'm still getting to experience something new. And I've worked, I'm sure you have too, like really dull jobs where the day to day is the same every day. And
oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really fortunate that every day for me is different.
Was there ever a time where you're working a show, right? A band is playing and you're like, oh man, not this band, or, oh, I'm not interested in this. But then you saw it and they completely changed your mind and then you were into it.
Oh yeah, all the time. Like, I won't name names, but like, I'm not really a big fan of country music in general, especially like this like TikTok country stuff that's going on. But there was a band that I had worked a couple months back that I watched a couple songs and I was like, damn, these guys are like really strong musicians, like really good musicians. So I love having low expectations and getting those like exceeded.
Yeah. It happens to me all the time on this show too. I don't dislike anyone I've had on the show because that wouldn't make sense.
Right.
But my love of many, many bands has been increased and strengthened time and time again from talking to people on this show. And I love that.
Yeah, it's cool to like be involved in a community like that where most people are pretty tight.
Absolutely. So you grew up in Rockford. Let's talk about your history with music. Is it something you've always been interested in?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Give us some of your trajectory of like stuff that you're into over the years.
Sure. I mean, I've always been pretty open to most genres. Like growing up, my dad exposed me to all the classic like dad rock stuff. And so like my first favorite band was The Who, and and my dad took me to see Deep Purple and we were on the bass player's side and I was like, man, this guy's cool as hell. And
yes.
Yeah, so like I asked for a bass for Christmas in 2005. And so I got that bass. And then later on that year, I bought Green Day's American Idiot. I think that had probably been out for like a couple months at that point. So I was getting really into The Who. I was getting really into Green Day. I was getting really into like Black Sabbath. So I was always really open to everything. And I'd always read like liner notes. And as soon as I got that bass, I started learning songs. Like I had this little yellow legal pad for some reason. It's a weird thing to have as a kid, but I had one of those laying around and I would just like try to learn a couple songs every day. And if I learned the song, I'd write down like the song, So like song 1, I learned Pictures of Lily by The Who or whatever. And I just keep going down and I filled the notepad up and then I got another one and I just kept doing that. And then I started going to local shows probably 2008, which was 8th grade for me. And I just wound up meeting some kids from another school and playing in a metalcore band, and I just kept going.
Those local shows that you first started going to, were they metalcore bands? Was it that kind of vibe?
Yeah, so like 2008 was like the year like deathcore was getting kind of big, and so that scene was pretty big, especially in my area because the band Oceano was from pretty close by, so they would come and play Rockford a lot. There's a lot of like church basement shows and stuff like that. But I tried to go to like every show I could. Like if I heard there was a show happening, I would go.
Yeah, yeah. Discovering the local scene was like really eye-opening for me because I had always wanted to do something. Like I remember wanting to play guitar, but even that seemed impossible. And then I got a bass like yourself after seeing everybody in the local scene and seeing everybody in bands and really good bands. And I was like, oh my God, like everybody's doing this. I can do this.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important because like my reference up until that, like randomly going to that show, was that first show was like, okay, every band is like Deep Purple, right? Like they're making money and they're playing these like relatively big shows, and like there's no way I could do that, but I'm still going to learn songs, and then getting dragged to local shows, I realized like these are people in my high schools or a little older, and there's people traveling that aren't like in famous bands with big production companies, and well, maybe this is something I can do.
So if you filled a legal pad with songs you learned, you must have been pretty seasoned by the time you got to these local shows, because was that the case? Did you learn just a ton of songs?
Yeah, I was a pretty shy kid. I wasn't really like outgoing. So I had like a couple kids that I would hang out with, but for the most time I was just like at home filling up the legal pad.
And if you learn that many songs from that many different bands, I just imagine that you'd be good, like pretty good, because it's like a lot of different bands, a lot of different styles.
Well, I felt like I was okay at a pretty early age. I still don't think I'm good because there's always someone better, But
Yeah.
I started jamming with people pretty early on, and like I used to go to like church youth groups because like it was a way to get away from like my parents and like hang out with kids my own age. And I wound up playing in that youth group band for a while before going to local shows. So I had experience like playing with other people, and like I was always like an ear by ear learner. So I definitely got a lot of those songs wrong. But I would, I'd say I learned them, but like I would learn like My Generation by The Who. I don't know if you know that song, but there's like a little bass solo in there. It's like a 4-part bass solo, and I could do like 3 of them okay, but the 4th one was so hard. But I was like, okay, whatever. I learned that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start going to local shows. You start playing. You're playing in high school.
Yeah.
What's some of the independent music that grabbed you? Like when I discovered this, right? It was 98. So for me, I got thrown right into the fire. Dillinger Escape Plan, Cave In, Converge, Botch. Those were, some of my favorites.
Yeah. I love all those bands too. I wound up finding them later in high school, maybe a little after. But I was like prime age for like Under Oath, for example.
Yeah.
Bands like that, all the Solid State bands. And then I got really into like the Count Your Lucky Stars, like emo bands like Castavet and stuff like that. And then, yeah, like a lot of the metalcore from my area. And then a lot of the kids I knew were like really into like Job for a Cowboy and bands like that, And then one of the kids I played with in that church band showed me this band Seisha in 9th grade, and then I went down that rabbit hole for a while.
Nice. Was that would you get locked onto one particular thing, or did you keep your taste pretty open? Like for me, once I discovered the metalcore that was happening in the late 90s, I was like, this is it for me. This is what I listen to now. Then I found emo, and I was like, this is it for me. This is what I listen to now. And then I don't know, I would just jump from one thing to one thing and drop everything else. Like, what did you do?
I think I was maybe a little too open. That same kid that showed me Seisha, we would walk around playing like Q Is What We Aim For covers. and then like Bright Eyes covers and stuff. So I just wanted like all music all the time. Like I found, like I bought a Jaco Pastorius. Do you know Jaco Pastorius?
He's isn't he like a famous bass player?
Yeah, he's like a fretless jazz bassist.
Yeah.
He kind of like popularized like fretless bass, and I bought his CD in ninth grade along with. I'm trying to remember the other band CD. It was like a death metal band, so I've just always been like into whatever I could find. Like I don't really think there's like bad music. I think everything has value.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where my attitude is now. Definitely was not like that when I was 17, 18 years old. But I say it all the time on the show. I think that approach, just being open to everything, also makes you a better musician.
I think it would make you more willing to like try things that sound weird for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? You mentioned Cast of Ed. I just was listening to them earlier today.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're one of my favorites. Their bass player Ron actually plays in the band Bong Ripper too, which is kind of funny.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a weird, weird difference there.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine someone from Cast of Ed going on to Bong Ripper.
Right? Yeah.
You just never know.
Polar opposites. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope Cast of Ed, they broke up what in like 2010 or 11 or something.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope they somehow get back together and record something new. Apparently they had new songs. I had Evan from Into It Over It on the show a long time ago, and he said they had some new songs that never got recorded. You know, it's got to happen. We got to make it happen somehow, Nick.
The world needs it. Chicago specifically needs it.
Exactly. So, you've known Lowell from Frail Body for a long time, right?
Yeah, we met around the time I started going to local shows way back in like 2009. And we would be playing shows together pretty frequently, and then we were in some bands together early on.
What kind of bands?
I was so he was in like a Russian circles / ISIS kind of band called Indomitable Ancients that I really loved, and then he was a band called Skyrail that was more like Minus the Bear, like indie type stuff. And my early post-hardcore band broke up and reformed, and we had Lowell as our vocalist for a minute. So we were in this band together for a while, and then we wound up like parting ways with him and going on our own for a while. But Lowell wanted to keep making that type of music, so we started jamming like post-hardcore stuff together around like 2015, and then that eventually became Frail Body.
Ah, okay. So how old are you when you and Lowell start playing together?
Well, we were playing when I was in high school for that post-hardcore band, so I was probably 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Frail Body started in 2017 though, when I was, I guess, 23.
Ah, yeah. So it's been around for a minute.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what is your life like? I'm talking like late high school, after high school. I mean, is music the only thing you want to do? Is that your only focus? Did you go to college? Like what's going on in your life?
I mean, music was always kind of like my main interest. That post-hardcore band I had in high school went on a little bit after high school, and I was trying to take it like pretty seriously. We did like 2 tours, and we had like some traction in our hometown and stuff, but we wound up like fizzling out. And while all that was happening, I was going to community college, and I'm glad I went, but I did hate it because I realized like I was just taking all these gen ed classes, and I just knew like I needed a tour. Like I don't know why, but I had that mindset. Like I need to travel. I need to get out of Rockford for a bit. I need to see what I can of this country, you know?
So you just kept playing locally, I guess, until 2017 when Frail Body gets started?
Yeah. I didn't really do much touring besides those 2 earlier tours with that post-hardcore band. It was just hard to find the right people. We had a pretty vibrant music scene here when I was coming up, but by the time I had hit college, everyone had kind of stopped playing or booking shows or anything like that.
Yeah, like what? You say it was hard to find people. It was for me too, and I'm curious about that. All right, here's my situation. Right, when I was young, I came into a scene where everyone was basically like 18 years old, but already established. You know, like they're already in bands. They're already in bands with each other. They're already doing national tours. And then a lot of people went on to bigger things. A lot of people went on to bigger tours. And I don't even think people knew I played instruments or wanted to be in a band because I was like ashamed. I was like ashamed to tell people, or like, I don't know what the hell was going on. So it was hard to find people, right? Because all my friends are already out there doing it, and I'm not at the same skill level they are. Later on, I was just fucked up all the time, drunk, high, distracted, focus in the wrong place. So that made it difficult to be in bands. So that's another thing that made it difficult. What made it difficult for you?
I think it took me forever to get over being like such a reserved person. I don't know. Like it was always kind of hard for me to like make friends or just like talk to somebody first, And so like my first band that was getting traction, I was like, okay, this is going to last forever. I don't need to. It was also hard for me to jam with other people because like a lot of times, I'm sure you experience this, you'd like go to meet up with someone and jam and write, and they would like try to write stuff for you, or like they wouldn't like let you have your own like input on things. And I don't work that way. I don't want to play like someone else's music, I want to be a part of writing.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on both of those. It's not enough for me to just join a band and have someone say, here, you're going to play all this. Because usually if I'm involved in something, I have a vision of some sort. So that's another thing that can separate me because, there can be personality clashes or someone else is driving the thing. And what about now for you? Is it still hard for you to talk to people or be more outgoing?
Oh, I'm definitely a bit more outgoing. I consider myself a pretty friendly person, and at least it shows. I love like having random people talk to me, whether it's about Frail or just like random shit. Like even if they don't know like the band, I love making friends. It's a lot easier now. I think before, like I stopped drinking back in like August, and I think a big problem was that I was just always getting like fucked up at shows, and like I had my friends or wherever we were playing, and I wouldn't really be able to talk to anybody else. But now I feel like I can kind of like put myself out there a bit more,
Yes, absolutely. That's why, all right, I've always been super shy, super introverted my whole life from as early as I could remember. So I accidentally found out that I really liked drugs when I was young, and I would take them, and alcohol too. And I come from a family, a background where alcohol is just part of the deal. Like you're together, you're socializing, you drink, and I found those to at the time be the cure for my deep-seated shyness and introvertedness, and eventually it became a crutch, and then eventually it just completely took me down. So I had to learn how to socialize all over again later in life.
Yeah, and it feels like when you stop, sometimes you're back at whatever age before you started, like I don't know, sometimes I feel like I'm like 18 still,
Exactly. It depends on the day. Sometimes I can't talk to anybody. So like, all right, sometimes I'll see my own friends, right? Like I was at a fest and I saw my own friends who I've known for a long time talking to each other. And I'm like, I should go up and say hi. I haven't seen them in a long time. And I was like, nah, I don't want to bother them. They don't want to talk to me. So
right. Yeah. You don't want to interrupt.
It's like a deep-seated thing. Yeah. So you quit drinking back in August.
Yeah. Yeah.
What prompted that?
Well, I went to the doctor for like some other health issues, and they did like their little blood test thing or whatever. And my doctor was like, hey, like you drink a lot, you should stop because this and this and this. And I was like, what? I'm having fun. What the fuck? Like I thought I was just having a good time, but it turns out I was doing some pretty serious damage. And then that day I just stopped. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And you managed to stop.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, now that it's been about a year, I can kind of look back and say like I was coping with some issues that I didn't want to address, Yeah. But when I quit, it was cold turkey, and I wasn't like gonna say like, hey, I'm an alcoholic or I need to go to recovery or whatever. I thought I didn't think that was the case with me, but I can kind of acknowledge that I was running away from some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff?
I had a pretty rough childhood, bounced around quite a bit. And I was always with my little brother. And I saw what I saw, and I chose to be like straight edge until I was 18, and then I started drinking. But he went down the other path. And 2019, he overdosed. And then I quit drinking for like a week or two after that. And then I work at a bar, basically, these music venues they're basically bars. So I didn't realize like, oh, I'm getting hammered every night because it's fun, but I was actually just like avoiding my feelings about that incident,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your brother still alive?
No, he passed.
So he passed after the overdose.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. That's wow. Yeah, I feel a lot of kinship with you because I had an older brother. He died when he was 17. I had just turned 16. He was diabetic, and I didn't realize the effect it had on me at the time because my parents worked like 2 jobs each, and they had to keep working. Like everyone had to like hold everything together. So he died. It rocked the family, and then it was like, well, back to work. Keith, you're going to look after everyone. Just everyone back to work, and you sit on that. You sit on that for years, and you never really process it. Back to work, back to school. So now I can look back and say, like, okay, that thing was simmering inside me for a long time, and it came out in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. It's a really difficult thing to process, and I'm sorry to hear about your older brother too.
Yeah.
But I kind of realized I have like a really strong friend group around me, and like I can talk to those people if I'm ever going through it. So
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. The hope is we live long enough to get some insight about these things and start dealing with them, right?
Right. Yeah. Try to grow if we can.
So are your parents still around? Do you talk to them?
Yeah. I try to go over there once a week and just say hey and see how they're doing. They watch my nieces every now and then when some stuff when my older brother needs a babysitter or anything like that, or so I go over there to see my nieces, and yeah, we're closer now than we ever have been.
That's good. That's good because you know firsthand what a death like that does to a family.
Oh yeah. It's I like the day that it all happened, I was like going to band practice with one of my other bands, and like I don't know, it was just like I called Nick, my drummer who drums for both bands, and just like cried to him for like 10 minutes. I was like, dude, I can't come to band practice, like this is going on. Like I don't know, it's like I have a pretty shitty memory, but I remember that day like minute by minute.
Yeah, me too. Look, we made it this far, and now you're in Frail Body, yes?
Oh yeah.
That's right. It gets started around 2017.
Yeah, we Lowell had a previous band that I had wind up joining in like late 2016, and then we decided to move on without the other drummer and form Frail on New Year's of 2017.
So how does it come together? I mean, do we say, hey, we're going to start a new band, hey, we're into this right now and we want to try to replicate that? Like what's the story?
Yeah, basically me and Lowell had this practice space in this warehouse, and we shared it with another band called Pains, which Clem, the drummer for Frail Body, drums for. And so me and Lowell we were just always at the practice spot, like getting drunk and hanging out. And Clem was always there practicing and drumming. And sometimes like we'd invite him to have a beer with us or whatever when he was done. It was a really cool warehouse with like a rooftop access. So we would just go up there and like look down on the city and talk about stuff. And me and Lowell were both like, man, you're a really good drummer. We need a drummer. These are the bands we're into. Like, do you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, let's fucking do it. We're hanging out anyway. And
nice.
yeah, I mean, we had it set from the go that like we're just going to tour as much as we can with this band. We're going to write and we're going to tour and we're going to go and we're just going to try to do it.
And did you do that early on?
Yeah. Well, so Rockford is like, it's an hour and a half north of Chicago, but it's also an hour and a half south of Madison and Milwaukee. So you can do like a little 3-day weekender if you want. And so that was kind of like our plan. It's like, okay, let's do 3 days and we'll go north, and then 3 days we'll go east next month, and we would just repeat that month by month. We do like a little 3-day run, and eventually those turned into doing week longs and then longer.
Nice. So that's primarily all you're doing at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I had a dead end job I didn't care about. Clem was working some like service jobs. We just we were in our early 20s and we're like, this is a good idea. Let's just keep touring.
Yeah. How do you make ends meet? Like, I mean, do you live with friends, or are you still living at home? Like, what's the deal?
Well, that's the biggest benefit of living in the city is rent is like crazy cheap. So I live in an apartment that's really affordable. But I mean, it's a struggle. Like, I don't really, when we're not on tour, I don't really spend any money at all.
Yeah.
I'll buy like a bass or an amp or something every couple, like 6-7 months or something. But other than that, like, I don't really have many other hobbies. So it's like, I just put the money away because I know I'm going to need it next month,
So you continue playing. Now, I read that you got on Deathwish's radar because they had a podcast, right? And someone who was hosting the podcast heard the band and liked it.
Yeah, our friend Allie. She shouted us out, and we just like Instagram messaged her and became friends. And like, she came to like our first show when we were on the East Coast for the first time, and like we just became friends, and she was awesome. And then we recorded a brief memoriam and sent it to her, not saying like, hey, show this to Deathwish or anything, but we were just like, hey, like, you like the band, you let us know what you think about this. And then she like hooked us up, and yeah, it was funny because like when we started the band, we were just naming all these ridiculous goals that we thought would be like unobtainable. Like, oh yeah, dude, we're going to sign to Deathwish, dude. We're going to tour with Converge. And it's like, okay, shit, we toured with Converge and we signed to Deathwish. So like anything from here on out is like a plus,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something I was thinking about earlier today. What did you want out of music? Like, when I was young, I think I wanted it for the wrong reasons. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in a band and it's going to be huge and like everyone's going to respect me and like people will give me drugs and it'll be awesome. And then later on, maybe in my early 30s, I was like, oh, like one day someone is going to reach down and like bring me into their already existing thing. And then like, because they'll see what a talent I am and it'll happen. And now later, it's just like, I just want to be in a good band and play good shows, whatever that ends up looking like. So I think my expectations have leveled out over the years. Like, what did you want from music? What did you want to do?
I think I just really liked the feeling of performing, honestly. Like the first show I played, I was nervous as hell. It was like we opened like a really packed local show in front of like 150 or 200 people or something. And like, I was so scared to be the opener on this bill. Like we were trying, I don't know, we were like one of those bands was like trying to talk about our stage moves before our shows and stuff, And I remember getting up there and playing and just like being frozen in fear. But the second show, which was the day after in the same city, it clicked. I was like, wait, this is awesome. I can just throw my bass around and play and have fun and like entertain people. After that second show, I kind of realized like, rock stars aren't really a thing anymore, but like maybe I can write something that'll like make people feel something. Like, I don't know, maybe I can write something that'll make people like enjoy life a little more than if it didn't exist, I guess. I don't know.
I like that. And you got out there and started touring a lot more, right? That's something you wanted to do, and that happened.
Yeah. I had to, like, a lot of people I grew up with have like never left Rockford. Not that that's like important to do, but I definitely knew early on that I wanted to see like I wanted to like experience as much of the world as I could. And like, my parents don't get to travel ever. Like, I don't think my dad's ever taken a vacation,
Yeah.
But like, I've gotten to see like both ends of this country so many times, and like to know that I have, like, if I'm in a state randomly, I could hit up some friends I made in like 2017 and like hang out. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. That's something I'm glad I got to do as well, because I don't know. I just wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be stuck in my hometown my whole life. I don't know. I need to see a lot of things. I need to experience a lot of things, and I'm glad that I got to do that.
Yeah.
So we talked to Deathwish, and then we end up getting signed with Deathwish, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How was that? Was it like a lot of conversations? How long does the whole process take?
Well, there's a lot of like emailing and stuff like that. And then I think we had like 2 like Zoom calls with everybody. And they kind of explained like what they would want from us. And we were like, yeah, we can do that. Like, let's go.
Was there any conflicts? Like, hey, we need you to do this. And you're like, no, we can't.
They don't want anything. They're fucking awesome. like, like if anybody was like getting an offer from them and they like asked my opinion or my advice, I would be like, yeah, do it. They are the coolest people in this industry.
Yeah, I've had some interaction with them and it's all been positive. So yeah.
Yeah, I just listened to your Jacob Bannon podcast, man.
Oh yes. He was really nice on the show, and I just saw Umbra Vitae and Hope Conspiracy. When was that? 2 days ago, and I did say hi to Jake, and he was really nice in person too. So good stuff.
Yeah, he's fucking cool, man.
Yeah. I mean, Converge is like legendary to me too. They played the first big hardcore show I ever went to. So like I've always looked up to them.
Yeah, and it's wild like how hard they go live. Like,
yeah,
I saw them for the first time last year, and I think it was like I saw them a couple nights in a row, and I think every set was like the best heavy set I've ever seen. Yeah.
They're still a powerhouse. Like I told Jake, there's never been a drop-off point for them, and that's amazing.
Yeah, definitely one of the most consistent bands.
All right, so A Brief Memoriam comes out. Wait, when in 2019 does A Brief Memoriam come out?
November.
Okay, so we're starting to get rolling. I bet things are starting to heat up, and then, of course, the pandemic happens, right?
Yeah, the pandemic happened while we were on tour.
While you were on tour. So what happens? When do you get word? Like, how much of a tour did you have to cancel?
We actually only had to cancel like 2 or 3 days. We were out for when did it close? Like late March, like
early March, somewhere around there.
I think it was like mid-March.
Yeah.
But we were doing like a 30-day run, and we were with a band from California, and we were like routing them back home. And like every city we would play would shut down the next day. Like we'd play Seattle would close down. We'd play Portland would close down. And we're all in our heads just like, is this actually happening? This is like crazy. And so we drop the band off and we do a couple days on our own, and we play a matinee in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that wraps up at like 4, and then the country just shuts down. And we're in Tulsa, which is 14 hours from Rockford. And we're just thinking like, man, are we going to be able to get home? Like, are they going to let us, like, are they going to shut down the borders? Like, what the fuck is going on? Sorry for the language. But, and I just remember rolling into Rockford at like 9 or 10 in the morning, and the streets are just completely empty. And it was so wild. We were only a couple months into like this record being out, and that was like our biggest tour up to that point. And it just felt really defeating, But yeah.
As you're explaining this, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I can't believe that happened. Like, I can't believe that was all real.
And it feels weird to be like upset about a tour ending when like so many people were like dying and shit, But man, it's a really wild thing that we all got to go through collectively, and I think that probably everybody's still going to be unpacking the trauma from that for the rest of our lives,
Yeah, and that's why I like to talk about it. And 2, I didn't realize that until I was talking to people on this podcast, because I'd be like, oh yeah, it's like, not so much now, but last year and especially 2 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's really hard for me to like go outside still, or I'm not going to as many shows or whatever. And people would be like, yeah, like a lot of people feel that way. We were inside for a long time and we're still dealing with it. And I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. You forget that.
Yeah.
All right. So at what point do we start writing Artificial Bouquet?
Really right around 2020, like a couple months after that all happened. One of the songs dates back to like 2018 actually, but all the rest of them, we all became unemployed, and while that was horrible, one of the things it afforded us was the ability to like lock ourselves in the practice space for a while. Like it was a thing where like the 3 of us would go to a practice space and then we'd go home, and that was it, masked up in a big ass room. We were practicing in like an old Freemasons temple, so we were able to still distance ourselves pretty well. And we just we'd go to practice for like 8-9 hours and write as much as we could. And yeah, it afforded us the time to kind of examine songwriting in a way that we didn't really have before.
Yeah, that's many bad things about the pandemic, but one good thing.
Yeah.
A ton of great music has come out of it.
Very true. And I try to like focus on that a bit more because I don't want to be bummed about it because it did suck, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, prior to this record, we had always just like written a song in a practice and that was it. But like with this record, we were able to, because we had the time, we were able to like move sections from one song into another song, for example, to see if it would like fit better there, and we were able to really focus on like transitions between parts instead of just having part A, then part B. There's like a bridge between,
Yeah, what's some of your creative process? I mean, will Lowell show up with a riff and everyone builds on that? Is there different ways you guys do it? Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, I mean, we primarily try to write everything together in a room. Sometimes he'll bring a riff, sometimes I'll bring a riff. Nobody really brings complete songs just because that's not why we're in bands. We want to everyone have their own input, Sometimes Clem will start with a drum beat and I'll play a bass part and Lowell will come up with like a sick lead over it or something. Or, yeah, a lot of the songs just happen from fucking around playing. Like we'll play a classic rock song and then we'll fuck around and we'll stumble around in like a cool pattern and we'll be like, wait, let's examine that, but nobody really has like a word in the other person's part. That's kind of like an unspoken thing. Like if I come up with a riff and then Lowell comes with a part he really likes, I would never be like, dude, we're not doing that part, unless it was like really bad. And the same thing for me or Nick.
So there's never like, all right, does anyone ever play something and someone else is like, well, what if you tried this or what if you tried that?
We'll do that. Yeah, we'll try it.
Yeah.
But I feel like 9 times out of 10 with us, we go back to whatever we were like originally playing,
Yeah.
I guess we're stubborn like that.
How long were you guys jamming together, writing together, putting together Artificial Bouquet?
Probably like mid-April or early May 2020 through, I think we recorded in June of 2021. So about a year.
So you recorded that album in June of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, we sat on it for a while.
What was the reason for that?
We spent so much time on like the music part of it that we wanted to have artwork that properly represented it. And we tried a bunch of different artists, and a lot of the stuff that they came up with were great art pieces and everything, but it didn't kind of convey like what we wanted image wise. And then Jacob Bannon offered to do the artwork, and we were like, yeah, of course, sure, we'll have to think about it, but and then we're like, yeah, Jacob Bannon's doing artwork, cool.
Yeah. How many other artists did you go through before you landed on Jake?
I think 2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens when they make something and then you're like, this isn't it? You just have to tell them thanks, but no thanks?
Yeah, basically, like politely, like I think a lot of people understand, like, and then they could, possibly reuse that artwork with somebody else or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We have a lot of like really cool artistic friends, and we're super grateful for that. So it was nice to be able to have options because like previous bands of mine, like there's no way we could reach out to anybody to help out. So I was very grateful for everyone that was in our corner for that.
Right. Did you find that once you're on Deathwish and, you're getting out there more, that more doors just open? Like, I don't know. My whole life, I felt like, man, I have so many great ideas. I just have no one to tell them to. But once my podcast got linked up with Iodine, it was just like doors started opening, and I feel like I have a couple connections now. Did you find that or did you find that being on Deathwish Inc?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there were a lot of friends that like would maybe come to our shows previously that would maybe be like, oh, like this band's playing locally again. Like they'd kind of like talk down about the band or whatever, but then like the Deathwish thing happened. They're like, oh, cool, you're on Deathwish. So I definitely think it definitely put us in front of more people for sure.
Yeah, because I remember hearing you for the first time, I don't know, 4 years ago. A friend sent me a song and I was like, yeah, okay, good band. Deathwish Inc. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
The label association still means something.
It really does, and you know, like the later years of high school for me, like I was buying everything I saw on like Deathwish or Top Shelf or Count Your Lucky. Like if I saw that there was a band on that label, I was going to check them out, you know? So I hope that's happened for us. I don't know.
Well, it is, I can tell you, because we have Artificial Bouquet now, and it's one of my favorite records of the year, easily. And where did you record it, by the way? Production is top notch.
We recorded that with a guy named Pete Grossman here in Chicago. It's called Bricktop Recording Studio. Yeah.
And mastered by Jack Shirley, right?
Yeah, that was like another dream thing that we got to do.
Dude, me too. I have a band coming out later this year, and he mastered our debut EP. Now that's something I didn't even dream of, because I love Deaf Heaven. Obviously, he's done all the Deaf Heaven stuff. I love Jerome's Dream. He recorded that record, their new record, which came out last year. That's my favorite record of last year. So when I heard that he could master our EP, I was like, what? Really?
That's so sick. What's your band called, Keith?
It is called Memory Entry.
Memory Entry. All right, cool.
Yeah, so you know what? The 3-piece band, let's talk about that. Now, my band that's coming out is a 3-piece band too. I want to keep it that way if I can, because I think more opinions means more trouble. What do you think, Nick?
I absolutely agree. It's like a too many cooks in the kitchen type thing, you know?
Yeah.
I like being able to bounce ideas off one other string player, you know? When there's a third person, some playing like a stringed instrument anyways, I feel like they might be fucking around or something while two other people are trying to like come up with a part. Or like a big thing is like room in the van when you're on tour, man.
Yeah.
Like I wish I could be in a 2-piece or a 1-piece sometimes. Yeah.
That tour all right, I just saw you when you played Brooklyn recently. And by the way, amazing show, sounds massive. You guys have got it locked in. You don't have any reason to ever not be a 3-piece. So let me say that first of all. Was that the tour with Pains?
What? When was it? We've been in Brooklyn a few times. Was that
last? It was like last month. There was a 2-piece band that played right before.
Oh, that was Venus Twins. They're fucking awesome.
Venus Twins.
Yeah.
They yes. Now, I'm jealous of 2-piece bands, because wow, it must be really easy for them, or maybe not, because what if they don't agree on something? There's no tiebreaker.
That's true, but they've got that twin telepathy going, so I think they just know what's going.
Right, they're actual twins too.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I would have met you at that show, man.
Yeah. Look, I have a whole thing with like talking to people. All right, if I have someone on the show, I'll sometimes get the courage up to go say hi if I see them in person, right? But sometimes not, because I'm awkward. But if I haven't met you at all yet, I probably won't do it, because my mindset is, I don't want to bother them.
Sure. Well, on that particular night, I was having like a pretty big like emotional thing. So it actually probably was for the best. But we are in Brooklyn all the time, man. I really hope next time you say hey.
Oh, the next time I will for sure. Yeah.
Right.
But you guys all right. So Artificial Bouquet is out now. I love it. Many people love it. I mean, have you seen a great reaction on your end to this record? I sure hope so.
Yeah. I try not to like look at anything, just because I don't want to I don't want to like see anything that I don't know. Everything that I have come across like randomly on like Twitter or whatever has been like positive for the most part, and I think that's really cool. I'm really proud of it. I'm glad that it got to reach as many people as it did. Yeah, I feel pretty good about the reception.
That's great. And the insane amount of touring you've been doing. I was looking through your Instagram trying to find the list of shows that were in the run that I went to, and I couldn't even find it. And there was just so many shows with so many amazing bands. I mean, this has got to be the best feeling, right? Is it? You're playing with a lot of good bands too.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to play with so many people that I've grown up loving. Like, we've gotten to do runs with like Loma Prieta and like Converge, like I said earlier. Getting able to go to Europe and stuff. Like, these are all things that like I've never thought would ever happen, and it's so sick.
Isn't it weird? Like, for me, a long time I was just playing in bands. Sometimes I had expectations, sometimes I didn't. And it was there was years I wasn't even in bands. There was a million times I never thought I would play music again. And well, not that I'm doing as much as you now, but I have a record coming out and I'm excited about it. And I feel like there's really good things happening, which wasn't always the case, right? So isn't it weird how things just kind of click one day?
It's so wild because, like we've been a band for so long and,
Yeah.
we've played shows to like 4 or 5 people. We've played shows where like no one's there but the sound guy and the sound guy's walked out. And you know what? Even when stuff like that happens, I still love it though. Like I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Like, okay. Let's say you're in the Midwest, right? You're no one's at the show. You set up, you play to nobody, sound guy walks out. If I'm away from home, somewhere I don't know, and I'm playing to nobody, but I'm not at work, right? I'd still be happy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
That's it, man. Like,
yeah,
I'm expressing myself in a place I have no business being,
exactly.
some basement in Indianapolis, to nobody. And I shouldn't be here, but I am because I wrote a song. Like that's awesome.
No, you should be there.
yeah.
You've earned it.
Thank you, man. This is what I deserve.
You've done a lot of touring in Europe too. Is it hard to get around? What do you do? Like, do you rent a van over there? Do you rent equipment over there? Do you have like a guide? Is there language barriers? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so April was our first time going over.
April of this year.
Yeah, April this year. So a couple months back. Our booking agent lives in the UK, and our first 5 days were over there. So he hooked us up with his friend who's like a driver over there. And that guy's now our friend, Adam. He's awesome. So he drove us around and like showed us everything for those 5 days. And it was so much fun, man. And then we crossed over into France to do the mainland section of that tour. And we went out with our friends in the band Knoll. Do you know them?
Wait, that sounds very familiar. I don't know if I've seen them. I've probably heard them. I know that name though.
They are amazing. Knoll. Knoll.
Yeah.
But they had been over before. So we linked up with them and they had a couple days in the mainland before us. So they had a van and a backline rented. So we kind of just hopped in the van with them and used those amps and everything. But yeah, we just rented gear and we rented a van and that's what we're doing for this August run. It's a little scary using gear that's not yours,
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the company that they rented through, I'm not going to name names. 3 of the heads that were rented blew on that run, and the bass cab, the bass cab had a blown speaker.
What do you do in that instance?
Well, a lot of the venues had backline cabs, so the blown speaker was only an issue for me at our last show. And if you were at that last show and you heard that speaker, I'm sorry. But yeah. It was like one of those things where like that part of it sucked, but every other thing about being there was amazing. So it was like, okay, I'm not stressing. Like I shouldn't be here. I'm on another continent playing Screamo. Like I'm going to enjoy this no matter what happens.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's one thing I remind myself constantly because I worry everything to death and make it not fun or like get too bogged down in details or trying to make everything perfect. One thing I try to constantly remind myself of lately is have fun. Like, why did we get into this? To worry? To ruin everything? No, have fun.
Yeah.
Remember to have fun, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have pretty bad anxiety most of the time. And I try to remind myself, like, we're here for a finite time, And so I'm trying to enjoy it.
Yeah. Like that show, that local show you said you played. Where the first night you could barely move and you're really scared. And then the second night you're like, oh, wait, I can swing my bass around and have fun. That's exactly what I went through recently last year in another band. And it's just like, yeah, like we're not going to get these chances forever. Just have fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
How was the response over there in Europe? I mean, do people know you? Do people know the record?
Yeah. A lot of people, were coming up saying they found us when we released a brief memoriam, actually, and they had been waiting forever to see us. We had Europe planned a few times before, actually, but like the pandemic happened for one of them. Pandemic actually canceled 2 of them, and yeah, so like this is our first, like we had a lot of people that were like waiting for those shows, which was several years ago now, and uh, everyone was so friendly and so kind. And for most of the shows, we just played the record all the way through, and it was as good of an experience as I could probably ever have, honestly.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of good things happening, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always like we planned that tour because we got an offer to play Roadburn. And that was a festival that I had always planned on just going to. So like being able to play it was absolutely like a dream for me.
When did you play it? Last year?
This April. Yeah. 420.
Oh, it was this past April.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about that. Now, I mean, who plays right before you? How big is the crowd? Like, set some of the stage for us.
Yeah, so the building that we played had two different stages. There's a big stage and a small stage, and we wound up headlining the small stage, which was a 1,500 cap room. The unfortunate thing is the band that played before us on the big stage was Cult Leader, who are like one of my all-time favorite bands. And I was I didn't think I was going to be able to catch their set because like I wanted to warm up before our set and everything, but it wound up being scheduled in a way that we could actually watch their set. So I got to watch them side stage, and that was cool. On our stage directly before us was Regana, which was really cool. Birds in Row played. Yeah, it was really cool. And then there was another building like a block or two down that was two larger rooms. Yeah, it was really gnarly, man.
Wow, so you've really done it all at this point.
I feel so. Yeah, I'm ready to quit.
It's a good feeling, though, right? Like once in a while, a bunch of good things will happen in a row or all hit at once, and I'll just kind of sit up at night and be like, yeah, everything's great. I like those moments. Don't happen very often, but when they do, I'm happy that they do. I bet have felt like that way a couple times recently.
Yeah, I mean, that tour was like 22 days straight of that or something. Like maybe more. I can't remember how many days we did, but yeah, man, it was so cool.
Well, let's talk about what we've got coming up.
Yeah. So we're going to be on tour in Europe, I think July 20th through August 18th. The three of us in Frail Body are also in another band called Bleached Cross. We have a split coming out August 9th with another band called The True Faith. Frail's got some stuff in September that I can't talk about yet. And then we have some other recordings we're going to try to release soon. A lot of the touring stuff isn't totally set in stone yet beyond late August.
Do we want to leak any of it here, right now?
Yeah, we're going to open. No, I can't. I was going to make a joke about opening up for like Led Zeppelin or something, but it wouldn't have been funny. So never mind. Yeah.
So you said the three members of Frail Body are in Bleached Cross?
Yeah. Yep.
How many people in that band?
There's 5 total.
Tell us about that band.
Whenever anybody asks, I tell them it's like The Cure if The Cure grew up listening to Under Oath. It's like just kind of like post-punk stuff. It's with Lowell plays keyboards, I play bass, and Nick plays drums, and then our friends Zach and Alex do guitar and vocals. We met them on our first weekend run. It was with their old band called Forfeit, and they randomly just sent us some songs that they were working on and asked if we wanted to help record them. And we were like, why don't we just like be a band? And so we made them be a band. And then we usually tour like in the summer for a week or two. They're both teachers, so it's hard to really do a lot of touring. And Alex just had a kid, but we do what we can.
Nice. I bet they were stoked that you wanted to just do a band.
Oh yeah. I mean, those are like two of they're some of my best friends. So it was a no-brainer.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's there's a lot of great stuff going on, which I'm happy about because, I love the band. I love what you guys are doing. Artificial Bouquet. Everybody needs to hear it. And it sounds like there's no shortage of good things happening too.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Nick, I love the band. Keep doing what you guys are doing. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. See you in Brooklyn soon.
And there you have it, Nic Kuczynski. You know, I've been listening to Frail Body for a bit now. Really got sold on them when I saw them at that show in Brooklyn. And the latest record, Artificial Bouquet, just a masterpiece. And Nic was super nice. It was really great to connect with him and hear about the band and some of the same tragedies that we've endured, some of the same good things that we've experienced. Really nice person, super great live band. If you have the opportunity to go see them on the immense amount of touring they're doing lately, do it. You will not be disappointed. So thank you so much, Nic, for coming on the show. All right, so let's check in. How are we doing? I'm doing pretty good. So the big news for me this past week is that my band Memory Entry played our first show in Manhattan a couple nights ago. And our drummer Chris booked the show at a bar called Area 141st in the East Village of Manhattan. And it was awesome. I mean, you just kind of set up in the back. There's like this little square of space. It was actually more space than I imagined. Shout out to our drummer Chris and Durgy from Area 141st Bar for hooking up our first show. It was a great, great experience. Our bass player Armando is in another band called Eyes Have It. It was their first show. It was our first show. Eyes Have It killed it. They were phenomenal. I mean, for a first show, I'm blown away. And our set went well too. It, there was a couple like minor technical difficulties that we worked out. I know what to do for our next show, and I know what not to do for our next show, but it went really well, and people seemed into it. There was a good amount of people there, and I'm super happy with everything. And also, special shout out to Mike Shaw, who came up from Pennsylvania for the show. My friend Nick Mariakis, also he splits his time in a bunch of different places, but he's from PA originally. He came up with Mike for the show. I was in my first band ever with Nick, and it was called Paper Tiger. So it was good to see them. Shout out to John Lane, who I was in the Darling Fire with. He played drums in that band. I was on bass last year. He came out. A bunch of friends, a bunch of good friends there. Good times. Perfect night. Well, I guess perfect would be like if nothing went wrong whatsoever. But how about this? I'm glad things went wrong, right? Because those are opportunities to learn. So there you go. Our next show is at Bowery Ballroom on Sunday, August 25th. We are opening the show. Taken is playing, On the Might of Princes is playing, and This Day Forward is playing one of their first shows in 20 years. More than 20 years, so can't wait for that. Other than that, there's not too much going on. I went to get an eye exam today. My vision gets worse and worse each year, so I'm getting a new eyeglass prescription and contacts too, because there's certain situations where I want to wear contacts and not glasses, including when I play a live show, because I don't want the glasses to fly off my face or whatever else. So I went to get the contacts, and when you get contacts, you have to put them in and then take them back out. And, they have to like watch you do it to make sure that you can do it. And I could not do it. And as much as I tried, I just couldn't get them. I think I got them in, but I couldn't get them back out. And eventually they had to get the doctor to take them out. And then I was really frustrated. And now I have to go back and do it again. So, it was not a good experience. Went home very not happy. But then I got over it and went online and looked at a bunch of tutorials and looked at what people had to say on Reddit. And I think I found a video with a good method that is going to work for me. So I'm going to give it another shot in 2 weeks when I go back. So listen, if you've experienced this, you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there who say that they gave up on contacts, or they couldn't get them in, or it's a frustrating experience, or the doctor got impatient with them. And I felt some of that today. I felt I was not getting the best instruction. So if you're like me and you're struggling with this, or even if you're just going for a contacts prescription, look at some videos online and get some methods down before you go there. Or maybe you just go in and nail it the first time. I don't know, but I'm having a lot of trouble with it. But I'm determined to get it done. We have a new Apple Podcast review, and I'm going to read it right now. This is from By the Slice. And By the Slice says, quality podcast about hardcore/punk. 5 stars. Keith keeps mentioning to leave a review for this podcast at the tail end of every episode, and I decided to because the interviews are so compelling and informative. I love this podcast. Thank you, By the Slice. Yes, we are on the push to 300 Apple Podcast reviews. That's review 234 right there. So, if you have not left a review, open up your podcast app on your iPhone, search the new scene, scroll down a bit, and hit that 5-star button. I think the writing, the actual review part is optional, but you can just hit the 5-star button and that'll up the review count. So we have to hit it hard. We have to hit it hard now. We've got a long way to go to 300. So thank you, By the Slice, and thank you, everybody who has left a review. And that's about it. That's all that's going on this week. I'm back next week with a return guest in one of my favorite bands. We'll also have our Artist Spotlight interview for the month. It's going to be a great episode, so check this out. I'm going to end the show with my very first band called Paper Tiger. Now, I was messing around online the other week, and I saw that my first band has a Bandcamp page up. Nick, who I mentioned earlier, I think he put the Bandcamp page up, or maybe someone else in the band did. I don't know, but I went to the Bandcamp page, and I heard a live recording of us playing the song Promise from our second EP, which was called Deadly Precise. This is a live recording, and I think it's pretty damn good. So we're going to end the show with that in honor of me seeing you, Nick, earlier this week. So Nick played guitar and sang in Paper Tiger, and I played bass. It was the first band I was ever in. I wanted nothing more in my life than to be in a band. It was like the ultimate desire for me at the time. Still kind of is, but at the time, even more so, because all my friends were doing it. I was learning to play bass. I was learning to play guitar. It was just like I had to do it. It was a big passion for me. So my friend Pat McCormick was like, hey, my friend Nick is starting this band. They're looking for a bass player. So he recommended me. I got together with Nick, and, he sat down with me and took the time to show me the songs and show me how they go and all this stuff. Because I was kind of slacking off. Like, I wasn't learning the set as well as I was supposed to. I was really more concerned with partying and going to dive bars and drinking and getting high and all that stuff. So I kind of learned the set, but kind of not. But he actually took the time to sit down with me and go through all the songs with me and show me how they're played on bass and work with me. He could have easily just been like, you didn't learn it, see ya, bye. And then who knows what would have happened. But he took the time. We had a really good couple years in the band. I didn't like the direction the band was going, so I quit rather suddenly. And then I think I was kind of upset that things didn't work out exactly the way I wanted to. So there were some years where I wasn't super nice to Nick. We weren't ever enemies or anything like that, but I guess things were a little weird for a while. But that's ancient history at this point. I have great respect for Nick and everything he does. I have no ill feelings toward the band or anything else. And I was really happy to see him. And that's it. I can't add the song to the New Scene Spotify playlist because I don't think it's on there. But listen, check out the playlist, follow it. I've got most of my recommendations there and most of the bands who are on the show this year. I'll see you next week.